this is why society is the way it is, because women buy. Women have the purchasing power in the world. We buy everything. So corporations, media have learned pander to women, their needs, their feelings, because men aren't buying things. Men are more price conscious, not all, but most men are not just spending frivolously. And so women, we will just spend on our feelings. We spend, it's by 90%, I think, the purchasing power. So media and culture has set up things so that women feel good because they are the ones that are going to make them rich. I mean, that goes into a lot of layers and a lot of levels, but that's the reason why our society is the way it is and why women are not held accountable, because it's not profitable.
I just want to just bring it back to the quick point is that, like, I don't know, like, if I ever get elected into any house or Congress or anything like that, there's got to be a way to make these false allegations illegal. Like there has to be something. Listen, most men have a friend that has had a friend, if not them, that's been falsely accused. Most men know of a man who they have a child with the lovely young lady. The child's mother can utilize some false accusation to remove that child from that man's life. Shit, I got a story on my channel, me being falsely accused of some shit. We all of us, but see, we won't want to talk about that. All of a sudden, we want to talk about holding them accountable. All of a sudden, we want to talk about that.
Can we talk about the DNA testing center? I had two guys call in. They work at DNA testing centers. One guy had to quit. One guy still works there. He told me 40% of the children are not the man's child. 40%. 40%. He said 40%.
Somebody call Maury.
It's usually
make DNA testing.
It's mandatory. It's two scenarios. It's where the woman, the person's getting a DNA test because the woman claims that is their child. Turns out it's not. The other one is where the parent is on a deathbed and makes a confession, or they need a liver transplant, blood transfusion, and the blood type. There's no way that can actually be the father. So then they find out that because of medical reasons. You mean that's not my father? Then the father finds out from that way. He said it took such a toll on him that he could no longer do it because he would be sitting on the phone counseling the men and the grown children who these women falsely accuse. We see it on Moore, we see it on paternity court, but yet we say men need to be held accountable. Why are these women needing all these why does Maury exist with you are not the father? Why does paternity court exist
if DNA testing was mandatory?
Accountable?
Do you know what would happen if DNA testing was mandatory? If they tested all women?
You'd have an
calamity.
My sister told me the other day, this should be standard. My sister told me last week.
That's why they won't do it, though.
She said it should be a standard thing at the hospital.
But that's why they won't do it. To me, it just makes sense. Give an epidural, DNA test.
And then, so he told me this story of this guy who the mom accused him of touching the kids. And it destroyed his social life. It destroyed everything. He got let go from his job. And the man, he called the guy and said, I'm going to kill myself. And hung up, and he said, "Thank you for helping me. But I can't do this. I'm going to kill myself." And he shot himself in the head.
That's what happened. That's what happened in the DNA center. That's what a guy quit.
And so, are the women held accountable for causing the men to do that over a false allegation?
Well, no, because even if that turns out that that's false on the man, that still sticks with him forever.
Forever. Yes. You're guilty. Regardless. You're guilty until proven innocent for men.
Same thing as the essay.
It's not guilty. It's not innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah.
No.
It's guilty until proven innocent.
Exactly.
You put it out. Look what just happened with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp.
That's right.
Look what just happened with that ESPN.
Don't get me started with Amber Heard.
Analyst.
Do not talk about Amber Heard.
What's his name? I don't really watch sports like that.
I forget his name, but I know you're talking about.
He just, and because of a false allegation, because of that, he was not allowed to report at the Super Bowl. Off of that, now we suing him for like tens of millions of dollars or something like that. It's absolutely preposterous and absurd.
Amber Heard should have woke all women. Do you know about the Amber Heard case?
Yeah.
Okay, so Amber Heard, the Me Too, all of that, to this day, she is still lying through her teeth. And we had to, there are SA victims, SA counselors that actually support Johnny Depp. Because we could see it for ourselves. There are women, you may not be that way, right? Yeah. So a lot of women, we internalize it and we'll say, well, my friends and the people I know. But there are so many women who are like Amber Heard, who to me is a complete demon.
Lying.
And
she took a shit on his bed.
No.
You're a nasty young woman. You're a nasty. Where the camera at? You nasty.
But not only that, but what
Gross.
she did, she violated him. The things in her lives would ratchet up, and guess what happened in society? Just because she made the accusation, his life was destroyed. It took him 6 years in a public trial in order to get it out there. If that trial was not public, people would have said, oh, well, the court system is against women and all that. But because we can see it, I knew Johnny was innocent early because I had saw some stuff with Amber Heard. I knew she was a narcissist just by the things she would do. But most people were fooled by her because she was pretty and had a smile and she just claimed victimhood. But once it came out, Johnny Depp, his case was pivotal for all men and all women to finally see that, yes, there are women and a large number of women who are lying. And the paternity court, Maury, why don't you as a woman say correlate and say those women on paternity court and Maury, who the father is not it. There's been women who've been tested, 30 men, and they still have not found the father.
But this is what we talk about accountability, right? Because the modern woman would prefer to lie than take accountability. So with the Amber Heard Johnny Depp case, she preferred to lie than to be seen. Because I've always said that women have a perception, right, that they want to keep up. They want to be seen a certain way.
Shouldn't destroy our image.
And so what it is that for women, image is everything, right? And so with Amber Heard, she didn't want her image to be destroyed. With the women that go on the Maury show, and I'm telling you, they go crazy. He should have been doing this before the DNA test comes out, by the way. They're going crazy because what? They're trying to keep an image, right? The problem is, the reason why MTR was talking about, okay, DNA test should be mandatory. The reason why they won't do it is because women's image would be destroyed. Women want an image in this society, and their image is going to be destroyed. So what they would prefer to do is lie, because there are most people believe that women are quite innocent, believe that they're the ones that are always a victim, right? What will happen is their image will be destroyed and they'll be seen for who they are, and they don't want it.
Maybe that's what needs to happen to break the system.
I'm going to make one point. One of the things that I learned in doing content in this space is, like, when I think about, like, the reason that feminism is where it is right now and the ideals as what it is that it's all a power play. It's all about power. At the end of it, at the beginning of it, and at the end of it, it's about power. Why would you consistently want to be a victim? To act like you are a victim in a society and talk about this patriarchy and talk about you're in this oppression when you're in the freest. Cleanness, lack of poverty, lack of homelessness, lack of, and the most abundant version of that society that has ever existed in the history of mankind today. What rights do you not have that I have? But that's what we've convinced them today, as if it actually exists. So they think they could just get away with the privilege of not being accountable because of all the structures that are put into place. One thing you guys mentioned before earlier was about Maury. Think about the concept of Maury. This is why so many women today are incapable of understanding the word accountability when they look at the different structures within our society today. The concept of Maury is she can test 6 to 10 men, but she'll never get booed. Ever.
She gets clapped.
She can come out up on stage and never get booed, but they'll boo all 6 of the guys, even if they were never the father. They'll boo every last one of them. As a young boy, I'm sitting here watching this shit like, damn, men ain't shit. Men ain't shit. And that's the shit that I was looking at the content. Men ain't shit. Because, of course, they had the dudes on the side saying, boo, or yay, if the woman came out. So it goes deep. It goes so deep at what we've been conditioned to believe in.
But
that's why. Hold up. That's why there's so many women today that are just incapable of seeing behind the trees. They just don't see it. They literally don't see it. They blind to it. But they were conditioned to be blind to it because it makes them a better consumer.
But you know what, MTR? Sorry to cut you, right? But you know what happens when they do get found out to be lying? They get consoled.
No, they run off.
Oh my God, I got
They run off and scream.
Don't worry, they run off the screen.
I got so many stories about this.
And everyone's like, oh, it's okay. So what it is that there's no accountability. Me and MTR know that if a guy does something and it's wrong and it goes tits up, there's an accountability there, right? There's accountability right there. Women get consoled, they get cuddled, they get told that it's okay, don't worry about it. So then she does what? She goes and does it again. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because she never learned the lesson. There was no real consequence.
Exactly.
And she's consoled by men and women.
Men and women,
well,
exactly.
There's always a bailout. I mean, even the church. I mean, it tells men to date born again virgins.
Fuck out.
Can I say this on Maury? Even if you watch it, the women will run. They will go automatically. The woman is cheered when he comes out, and all these men are booed. She will run off the show, screaming and crying, going crazy. And Maury will chastise the man. That child still needs a father. She didn't mean it. You know, you should still be nice to her.
Okay.
You should. But if the man is like, but if the man says that's not my child, I'm not gonna. They shame him. Boo. And it's gonna be that. What do you think about that? Like all of this that we've said. We've said a lot. I'm sorry.
You had a thought earlier. I'm just gonna let you go really quick.
My thought was, so what's the solution, right? Like, men talk about we want to be forward focusing, we want to reach a goal, we want to end the solution, right? And so back to the proposal earlier, it's the 5 to 10% of men, right? We've all agreed that men should be leading, right? But men have taken a passive seat to allow women to. The platform has switched. Women are being men. We're out here in the streets and we're doing what we were doing before.
Women who are
please lead.
We chose to be, but we chose to do that.
We chose to do what?
So whose fault is it? The men or the person making the choice? We made the choice to sleep around.
Let's be clear, though. Where did that come from? Because back in the day when men were leading,
we're in control of sex. They're in control of relationships.
Okay, but where did that come from? It came from a lack of fathers sitting their daughters down. To her point, she brought up a very good point. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee you, if this 80% of women had men, what do you mean why?
But why? Because there's incentive structures in place that allow women to take the father out of the home with no consequence. And women chose
historically,
to do,
absolutely.
And women in the last 100 years, or since the 60s.
Yeah.
So again, women chose to do that. We didn't have to take those structures up.
Okay, so we kind of were forced to. That's another.
No, we were not, ma'am. No. We were not forced to.
If you weren't going to get a check if your husband was in the house and you had to provide for him and the kids, we absolutely were forced to take the government.
That's a false narrative. That's a false narrative.
Paint me the real one, please.
No. Okay, so I will back it up. So if we go back into this, it is third wave feminism that actually caused this, and we talked about it earlier. I was talking to Pearl about it, about Cosmopolitan magazine and how they actually made money to create in the Black family structure specifically, because this is where the problem really lies in the world, in the U.S. I will say. I don't know how it is in the U.K. But our family structure, they purposely destroyed our family structure because it made them money. We can go into even government welfare, government cheese. There was a surplus of farmers having cows. They needed to make money. Government grants somebody needed to get this cheese, so to get this milk, get the food that they had a surplus in, or it would go rotten and these farmers would not make money. This is layered upon layers of layers that were systematic. So to say we did not have a choice, we chose greed. We chose a bag over a man. We chose to not have our children. We would rather have a bunch of money than have our children have a father in the home.
I disagree.
No. You have to know the history. This is proven fact.
History. No, men were not able to work and provide for their families. We were forced to take the government check.
That's false.
They couldn't stay in the house if they were there.
That's false.
Then how were they going to feed the children?
False.
And where was it coming from?
The children were fed. Women were greedy
because it was coming from the government.
No.
But if the husband was home, he wouldn't be employed.
Black women wanted to be like white women in the Cosmopolitan magazine. The woman who started Cosmopolitan magazine, the main editor, she is now a Catholic, and she repented from what she did. She said we were teaching women because we wanted all women to feel that we had a gripe with white men. And so, this is public knowledge. You look it up on YouTube.
She talks about it.
Yes, absolutely. They wanted Black women to also be part of their movement in other races because it wasn't enough. The Black woman and the Black man had to stay together in the U.S. because it was the only way for us to overcome. What they did was with Cosmo, they lied. These were women that would say, you know what, this is a single woman, moved to New York. She's sleeping with different men. She has her life. She has her own money, her education. She's she's getting these jobs. These women were promoting promiscuity and living a certain lifestyle when they were all married. They were all lying and making up these people because it was supposed to be a fantasy magazine. But women were taken as gospel and real. And so what happened is black women saw the white woman as pinnacle, because we're not going into colorism and all that. That's not what this show is about. But we saw the white woman as what to strive for as black women. We're saying these white women are free. These white women are independent. These white women don't need no man. I don't need mine. He's not doing enough. He's not good enough as a black man, when our entire lives, how we came out of everything we did in the U.S. was through the black man and black woman coming together. So we allowed these women and these corporations who wanted to make money off of our backs, and they knew that we had a insecurity about being dark, about being black, and we wanted to strive to the higher societies because white women were seen as the highest. So we think we want to be like white women, get our education, do this, do that, when those women were lying even to other white women. They were lying to us as black women. So then the government stepped in. There's whole documentaries about this on black history. And I mean, black historians will not refute this. This is what we all know as gospel in our communities. So what you're saying right here is black children, when we were being provided for, but it wasn't enough. We wanted to be like white women, and we had greed in our eyes. We had envy in our eyes. And we're like, I don't need no black man. I can do better. I can do bad all by myself. And so our children, it's a false narrative to say if our children were not eating. Our children were eating. We want it better.
And yeah, because the idea it's a money.
You need a tambourine after that.
Wait. So the idea that it's a money thing, and that like women had to take the government assistant because the men weren't taking enough money or weren't making enough money. Is that what you're saying?
So I think it's great that we can now, in our liberated sense, and now that we have the knowledge and understand it, right, we can definitely look back, vision is 2020, right, and say we would do stuff different. In that time, that was the narrative and the picture that was painted.
So is that what you're saying?
That is what I'm saying, because that was...
Wait, I just want to... Sorry. You're saying the men weren't making enough money, so the women had to take the government assistance.
Yes.
So, but even...
What?
Wait.
Oh my God.
Guys, wait.
Sorry, go ahead.
So even then, they had a higher standard of living than most people did in all of human history. So how is it an excuse when you're living better than most people did in all of human history?
Okay, so I'm speaking specifically for the black families, right? And so back then, when men were living at home, they were not able to be employable, right? And so they would leave.
Why weren't they employable?
Because everything she said is 100% factual, right? And if we knew that was a narrative then, of course we wouldn't have fallen for it, right? But because they were trying to divide the black family, they would say men to provide for your family or things like that. We don't want you to be there because we know that you're leaders and the impact of that. So how can we divide that? We're not going to give you good qualifying jobs if you're in the home. But then the woman, how can I provide and how can I do this if he's not in the home? They would take the government. We all know it's a scam now, absolutely. But back in the day, that was the reality. To get a good paying job, to try to pay for your family, be employable, right? You thought you had to not live in the household.
So you agree?
Yeah.
I wasn't that I wasn't agreeing. Okay. I couldn't elaborate on it, right? Everything she said was 100% factual,
so then
right?
But listen, though, if you agree, then why would they take that solution? Because it's almost as if Cosmo created this fantasy, but the black women attached themselves to that fantasy.
Don't we do it today,
overthrow the patriarchy.
We still do it today.
But black men were never a part of the patriarchy.
But we're still
so what
doing
were you
it
trying to be
today.
independent from?
Listen, I'm not saying it was right. I can't go back then and speak to their mindset.
So then hold them accountable.
I agree with that. I've always said we should hold women accountable this evening, right? But today we're still doing the same narrative, right? We're still selling city girls and being out here and being flown out. We're still selling it. And women are still buying it.
So I have a question.
They loving it.
Whose fault is it for buying it?
Exactly. I would challenge one thing that you said when you say that if we all agree that there's 80% of women that are out here running the streets, and then there's a 5 to 10% of men that are taking advantage of that. I reject the idea that the focus should be on the small percentage of men that are running the streets when we have an overabundance of women that are not acting accordingly. I would say let's at least get that down to 5 to 10% of women are running the streets, 5 to 10% of men are running the streets, and then look at them equally. But as long as we have the scale so tipped that women are allowing this, I say let's clean our own house first before we point the finger.
Yeah, but that's what